Hi, thanks so much for joining in. You're watching Stocks in Focus. My name is Alex Matthew and you're watching BQ Prime. This is a show that gets you closer to the companies that you might want to invest in, help you understand what they're all about and what the prospects are. Joining me today is Ankit Mehta, the Chief Executive Officer of ideaForge. It's a new age company, if you can call it that, because it manufactures drones that are used in a variety of activities. And to understand the business aspects, I think is the purpose of this conversation. Ankit, thanks so much for taking the time. Let's start with laying the foundation for this conversation, which is to explain the landscape and what part you play in that landscape. Drones, I think, is the starting point. But what can you tell us about what exactly you manufacture?
Absolutely, Alex. First of all, thanks a lot for having us here on the show. In terms of drones and their landscape, it's a very unique space wherein there is room for drones which are as small as something that can take off from the palm of our hands and can probably help us scout the target which is right in front of us, maybe a house that needs to be inspected or something like that, to the same house needing to be inspected from perhaps 5 to 10 kilometers away so that you can get advanced information about what is going on over there, to that same information in certain situations being required to be received from about 10 to 50 kilometers away, and so on. And you can imagine, as the distance from which the target needs to be observed goes up, you need to make a larger drone that can fly for a longer time frame. And perhaps in order for it to be inaudible to the target, you also need to climb higher. You need to stay farther away from the target so that you can look at the target with a lot of distinction. Therefore, the size of the drones can be as large as the ones that will require a very large runway to operate from, which is what you see as one of our recent acquisition targets, which is the Predators from the United States. So from drones that can take off from the palm of our hand to all the way these large UAVs, you need all sorts of assets when it comes to looking at security and surveillance applications, or even when you're looking at enterprise applications, different assets require and can serve different purposes. Now, in terms of where ideaForge operates, our focus from the very beginning, and I'll take us back to the reason why we started building drones in the first place for commercial deployment, was essentially when in the 2611 episode, when there were naval helicopters trying to see into the third and fourth floor of the Taj Hotel, we felt like our drones, which we were building by then already, could have been a reasonable replacement for that kind of asset. And therefore, we wanted to build something that our soldiers and forces can carry in the field and deploy for their last mile use. So from the 5-kilometer range to the 50-kilometer range is the typical target that we try to build our drones for. And these drones are something that a user can carry in a backpack, deploy them at the last mile in the field, and can take a lot of information ahead of their actually arriving at a particular scene or a particular target.
Understood.
And then these same platforms help in doing large scale mapping applications or large scale enterprise uses, where you need to cover a very large area in a very short amount of time and collect a lot of data.
Okay, so that then moves into middle mile and above, as you've pointed out, and I'm looking at your investor presentation as I speak to you. You have a very interesting graph of the various applications.
We want to scale it, yes. So now when we move forward, this is what we do today.
Yeah.
As we move forward, we are trying to also build platforms that will slightly exceed this capability that I mentioned, the 5 to 50 kilometer capability. And also looking at moving into platforms that can carry a very large payload so that we can enable a lot of middle mile delivery applications, both for our defense customers and civil customers.
So you mentioned defense as the predominant application as things stand right now, because you mentioned 2611, and I think that's also reflective in your revenue mix. I'm looking at the 2023 mix, and nearly 70% of your revenue comes from the defense forces, right? Is that likely to stay the case in the foreseeable future, or do you anticipate that with the middle mile platforms that you're building, will that change? I ask because globally, I would assume that there are a lot of other applications beyond defense. If you're talking about mapping services or you're talking about agricultural applications, there are a lot of other things that you can get into.
Absolutely, Alex. So what happens is that when we look at defense as a use case presently, given the geopolitical environment globally, you can imagine that there is a lot of impetus on drones as far as defense sector is concerned. And that momentum, given our own geopolitical environment, is going to continue in the short term. However, in the medium to long term, it is expected that the overall momentum towards civil side is going to go up because the variety of applications, like you mentioned, and the volume of applications, particularly when we go to logistics and when we go to some of these very high frequency use cases, it is going to become a very large opportunity on the civil side as well. Therefore, the medium to long term basis, you will see that the civil segment will start to dominate the overall UAV landscape. But given the geopolitical environment globally, the short term, definitely we will see a lot of defense uses as well.
Okay, so
and
defense.
Also, because the base has been low, particularly in our country, the base of induction of the technology was low earlier. So there is a need for rapid induction of the technology to be at par with our adversaries.
So defense is going to be the thrust and the focus for the company in the foreseeable future is my takeaway from that answer. Having said that, the government has recently, or rather the defense forces have recently introduced that indigenization list. I'm stumbling over that word, the PIL, right? So what are the benefits that you receive from that, or the potential benefits that you could receive from that?
So what happens in the positive indigenization list is that the government has committed that it will not buy any platform of those categories from outside our country. They will all have to be built in India and they will have to be designed and developed here in our country. And therefore, given our legacy of building this entire technology piece by ourselves, we believe that areas that we are going to target and focus, which is usually dual use platforms, we will be benefiting from the opportunities that are created because there is a need for local technology to be built in this space.
Okay.
And our legacy of building indigenous technology is going to help us significantly in this aspect. In fact, many of these platforms that have been listed for positive indigenization in the present list that came out recently and in the previous lists as well, some of them are definitely platforms that we are currently developing. And we have.
What is the potential in terms of value, in terms of revenue potential? So that your investors understand. And while we're at it, could you please also take us through where the order book currently stands?
Yeah, so if you recall from our last quarterly results, we had spoken about an order book of around 190 crores, and then we added a couple of more orders there. So it stands at about close to about 240 odd crores at this point in time when we add all of that. And in terms of the opportunity base that each of these segments address in drones, when I was mentioning that there are categories that can deploy from the palm of our hand to the larger ones, each segment, if we look at on a global basis, has multi-billions of dollars of opportunity as far as potential is concerned. If you just look at the two categories that India has recently spoken about that they are working towards inducting, one is the larger category of drones that are likely to come from the US when it look at the Predator class. And then the other category, which is medium altitude drones that we are looking for border management. These again are opportunities which already run in billions of dollars, right? And similarly, at every level and every category of drone deployment, the market size and market opportunity is several billions of dollars at full scale of deployment. And we have started to now induct the technology to the first level of induction that is required for beginning to staff ourselves for the overall scale of opportunity.
You're catering to the first third of what is a high potential sector, and as you go up the value chain, the ticket price and also what you gain is significant. Just so that I can understand in terms of value and in terms of how much that value goes up, Could you take us through the average ticket size of the drones that you're building right now, and how much that would change if you go into the middle altitude and then the high altitude and then the HAPS? What does HAPS stand for?
HAPS is high altitude pseudo satellite. So
Sure.
these are segments that we are presently not addressing. The male, hail, and HAPS segments we are presently not addressing or building platforms for, because these are pure defense application drones. So we are not keen on addressing only drones that can cater to defense applications. However, when you look at the tactical, the small, micro, and mini category of drones, it's again a very large market with a large volume opportunity. And if you look at the average selling price, our drones can range from as low as 5 lakh rupees to several tens of lakhs of rupees. So we have a fairly wide spectrum of average selling price on our drones, and that therefore, depending on the application, depending on where the drone needs to be deployed and what performance is required from the drone, the price points vary from vary to a very large degree as far as our operations and scale is concerned.
What kind of spends will you have to make in order to make the things that you have not done yet possible?
Right. So in terms of, our spend in terms of R&D, it's been close to early double digit numbers last year and last to last year. And we expect that this number will grow because with the addition of new categories that we are building our development team as well to make sure that we are able to invest adequate amount of resources and build the right team that can cater to this wide spectrum of users that we are building. So
you're saying early double digit in terms of crore, absolute value? Percentage of revenue.
Value in FY22 or FY23 was about 19 crores, if I'm correct.
Okay, so you're saying as a percentage of revenue?
Yeah, as a percentage of revenue, it was early double digits, and we expect this to, continue to grow in the short term because we are looking at building new categories and new capabilities on our platform.
Will you be able to?
We are continuously filing intellectual property from all the development that is happening over here.
Will you be able to continue to do this through internal accruals, or will there be a need to borrow, to raise funds? How is it going to go?
So in the short term, I think we are adequately capitalized to continue the impetus on this domain, and progressively as some of this converts to revenue, we do believe that we should see good growth from these efforts as well. In
terms of conversion of the orders that you've received, and around 240 crores is what you have right now, the experience with the defense forces is that there are considerable orders that flow through, of course, but the gestation time is quite significant. Is that something that you face in your business as well?
Typically, no. Depending on the nature of the contract, we are able to deliver on time. Like we've largely been on time as far as our deliveries are concerned, and that's been the positive sign of what we've been able to achieve over the years. That the control over technology and the way we have build the technology stack allows us to be consistent with our delivery and promised capabilities. The only thing that does happen is that, every contract comes with a specific delivery timeline. So we have to largely plan ourselves in a way that we can measure up to those delivery timelines.
Ankit, finally, give us a sense. So I guess we have financials for 3 years. New listing. I think a lot of people are looking forward to what the potential is. You've described that you've painted a picture for us. But in terms of numbers, if you can give us some idea as to how you expect things to go. You said you continue to expect to invest about double digits, right? Double digit in terms of percentage, early double digits in terms of percentage. Where does that take you in terms of revenue growth, in terms of profitability?
So, Alex, while we are presently not giving any specific guidance as far as revenue numbers is concerned, but we are on track to achieve our targets for this year at this point in time. And in terms of the outlook, I think, I'm quite happy to report that the pace at which opportunity is growing both on capital and revenue side as far as procurement is concerned and run rate business, we are quite, excited about what's in store for us over the next time frame.
Okay, all right. So we'll touch base again once the Q2 results are out of the way, and perhaps we'll get some more clarity on the targets that you've set for yourself at that point. Ankit, thank you so much for taking the time for speaking to BQ Prime.
Thanks, Alex. Real pleasure.
All right, viewers, there you have it. That was the management of ideaForge speaking to BQ Prime. Do stay tuned. Lots more coming up over the course of the day. This is BQ Prime.